CEO of RapidMiner, and Upal Basu, the Managing Director at Nokia Growth Partners, to speak about the high-value use cases for AI, ML, and predictive analytics.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Upal Basu. I'm a partner with NGP, aka Nokia Growth Partners. We are an independent financial VC backed by single LP Nokia. And as our name suggests, we are very global in our mindset, and we invest across the world really in entrepreneurs who have the sort of desire to go global, not just in the US, but China and Europe. Sitting with me is Peter Lee. Peter is the CEO and president of RapidMiner. RapidMiner is the world's #1 data science platform for high-impact, high-value use cases. At any given moment in time, more than 250,000 data scientists around the world are using RapidMiner for machine learning and modeling purposes. So Peter has a very distinguished background. He was formerly the executive vice president of TIPCO, where he was responsible for a 200 million P&L, which included analytics, big data, security, customer experience, and cloud computing. Prior to that, he was an entrepreneur, and last week he was voted one of the top 25 CEOs in the Boston area. So, welcome, Peter, and thanks for having us.
Good to see you.
And so just launching right in, for the audience's benefit, could you tell us what are these high-impact, high-value use cases where RapidMiner has been used to create value?
I emphasize, first of all, that just as background, so Upal talked a little bit about the number of data scientists. We have several hundreds of enterprise customers, and I'm not going to list out the hundreds of different use cases. I would define high-value, high-impact use cases as being measurable and quantifiable ROI. We religiously do that for every one of the use cases that we address, and they fall into 3 distinct categories. Roughly about 40% of our use cases are grouped under what I would call revenue ROI. And I would shout out to, for any of you in the audience who are interested in a little bit more research on this, Ventana Research actually does fantastic work at surveying and documenting and benchmarking several of these benchmarks. So the first high-value use cases are really around customer and marketing 360, precision segmentation, and very classically you find revenue ROI numbers, something like 50% greater revenue opportunities or increases in revenue, okay? The second class is about, we see roughly about a third of our total use case population in this regard is a straightforward cost cutting. Classically, supply chain optimization, business process mining is really on fire. And I think something that we'll talk about, I think, in the next question is predictive maintenance. Very classically, Ventana thinks about their customer base surveying something in the range of about a 1/3 reduction in identifiable costs. So thinking about that in terms of applied machine learning. And then lastly, risk and compliance. Avoiding risks is, or having a much more transparent view of risk and compliance is, the third set of use cases. That's about 27% of what we see in our customer base.
Okay, so I think we all understand sort of churn, loyalty. A lot of use cases on customers is perhaps one of the use cases where everyone thinks of machine learning and AI. Can we talk maybe about some unusual use cases which you see internationally, perhaps not just in the US?
Yeah.
Where you're seeing the use of machine learning in predictive analytics?
I would say, first of all, just as a high-level comment, I'm often asked about in terms of unusual detection patterns or so forth. I would say one of the consistent recurring themes in clients is how does data science and machine learning really change the game relative to more traditional approaches with statistics and predictive analytics. And I would just say as a high-level comment, and then I'll go into the specific use case with a specific client, is that in general what I see with our clients is that statistical approaches are all about taking the smallest sample size and trying to draw the most relevant inference and conclusions about that. Data science is on the other end of the spectrum. It's really about taking all the sample size, more data, And really with that, you get a significantly better predictive signal. AZ Brown Boveri, ABB, which is a very large engineering firm in Switzerland, multinational, has publicly gone out and talked about at the recent Industrial Internet of Things a game-changing way in which they use data science and the RapidMiner platform to really save lives and cut tens of millions of costs. They were able to detect wobbling in a turbine, which a 20-year veteran on site, PhD in stats, was not able to see using traditional approaches. And I think they specifically talked about, I'm not going to get too technical here, but how neural nets, feature selection, decision trees, and other types of modern machine learning approaches really move the needle for them. So I think that's a great example of one of the ways in which we see machine learning being applied. Of course, engine data has massive amounts of data sets that can be blended together.
Okay. So before I ask any more questions, perhaps the audience has any questions on data science or predictive analytics or machine learning for Peter. Feel free to ask him a question. Okay. So I had a couple more questions. One was, when we invested in RapidMiner 2 years back, AI was sort of a new topic. Most people didn't really fully appreciate it. Now it's become massively hyped. What kind of challenges does that create for you as a company selling into your customer base and also sort of managing sort of that perception of AI being the one which will solve everything?
Yeah, I think that there's probably the number one challenge we face is certainly not getting in the door. I think there's a massive skills gap, a massive understanding gap about how can enterprises really take advantage of modern data science technique in existing high-value use cases. And so I think the implication, certainly for us as we've seen it in our business, is we are really deeply expanding our relationships with channel partners. We think data science is the type of use case that helps when you have assisted curation, when you have some expert domain expertise and other types of expert assistance. We work very much on a barbell to go to market. We're very Atlassian and HubSpot in that we're entirely inside sales, user-driven open source funnel, and then as we expand in the accounts, very classically we get involved with partners that really help to take it forward and industrialize and operationalize the use cases.
Now for the folks' benefit here, you've been an EVP at TIBCO, you've seen the evolution of analytics. As you look at the industry adoption of AI and machine learning, both in Europe and the United States, how do you rank the willingness to spend and the adoption curve across the different industries, and what shifts do you see playing out over the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would, I think the gold standard for the market sizing and really the evolution of the analytics space is really Gartner. And I think if you think about I'd say we're in the third significant paradigm shift in the analytics space. I would say analytics 1.0 is very much the business intelligence platforms, hand in hand with the enterprise data warehousing kind of technologies. Very historical, backwards looking. They could do basic sums and counts. Very much an IT driven, long cycles, business objects, Cognos, Hyperion, the kind of that era, Teradata. I'd say we're kind of moving off the crest of analytics wave 2. That would be dominated by data discovery, data visualization vendors, Spotfire, which I ran at TIBCO, Tableau, ClickTech, Aster, which got bought by Teradata, Greenplum, Vertica, Netezza, these analytic data stores and drill downs with a real emphasis on moving from historical reporting to current levels of insight. And we're firmly now in analytics 3.0, which is predictive and prescriptive, complementary to the first and second waves, and really built much more around, can I take human or automated actions? Can I intervene? Can I go beyond just current insight and really close the loop between insight and action? Insight without action has no value, and I think this generation of tools and approaches is really going to be centered around predictive action.
So what would be the top 3 industry verticals where you see the biggest growth over the next 12 months?
There's probably a dozen verticals that are pretty consistent, but the top three, I think, for sure, early adopters, finance. I think that all of the very large manufacturers are really moving sharply into Internet of Things, predictive maintenance, those type of cost-cutting use cases. And then I think we're seeing quite a lot of activity as well in the life sciences area, tremendous amount, those three.
Okay. I don't know if you have any time left, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to take it. Okay.
Do you have any use cases that you have seen in the security world?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we see, in fact, there's two clients in particular that I can think about. One of our clients is Security Scorecard. They're a Sequoia and Google-backed company. They're one of the two leaders in third-party vendor ratings. And they really do a spectacular job of leveraging machine learning and other types of approaches to prioritize and really granularly identify the risk window that's correlated with your assets, and in particular a focus on the third-party vendor ecosystem surrounding. There's another type of client, I would say, NOPSEC, which is the CISO of Google's on that board. And they really do a great job of correlating and prioritizing the threats to the assets, and then exploiting social collaboration capability to help people who have to patch and remediate understand what's happening live when you apply these patches. Those are just a couple of use cases that jump to mind. The government, DJ Patil, the original chief data scientist for Barack Obama, I was fortunate to have dinner with him a couple of weeks ago. And if you talk to him and what he sees in cybersecurity, that's probably one of the four principal areas that machine learning is massively, both on offense and defense, impacting the way in which we think about security vulnerabilities and attacks.
How about physical security?
Physical security, we have not seen in our experience physical security applications. I would say the closest thing that we would have to that is very repeatable, in fact I would say it's something that's beginning to take a lot of fire, is business process mining, kind of the next evolution of infrastructure, of business process management. So kind of moving away from just standardization of basic business processes, some of the very significant multinationals are really looking at business process mining as a capable means of radically altering costs while keeping service levels, high. And they really take a look at the flows of business processes and really model out how should that change in order to, again, take a third of costs out. That's probably the closest thing we see to physical security.
I think we maybe one more question, last question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Simple questions. Two questions. What of your simple description of the difference between traditional BI and AI machine learning analytics? And the second, large BI service providers can easily catch up with the AI machine learning service providers.
Got it. Okay, so for the audience, two questions. The first question is, I believe, legacy BI versus machine learning, kind of what are really the capabilities difference. The second part following that would be, why can't the legacy BI vendors catch up quickly and crush the nascent startups? Okay. So on the first question, I think, again, I would say if I had a quick column to really imprint on in terms of legacy BI, it would be really a set of capabilities that is monolithic, a set of capabilities that is entirely focused on structured data, limited data sets, long IT sales cycles, really fixed level of reporting. The only mathematical operations in all of those sets of technologies would really be sums and counts. Really very, very simple. If you kind of fast forward to the machine learning era, you're really talking about a fantastic universe of advanced data prep and machine learning and other algorithmic pattern detections, both supervised and unsupervised. I think it's not even in the same era. it's really night and day. I would say they're radically different approaches, and it's not just one tool, it's a set of tooling, all built around predictive, prescriptive, and I want to emphasize human or automated intervention. Insight without action in today's environment has zero value. In terms of can the old guys crush the new guys, I think that's the classic, Darth Vader and Jedi Knight, story. It's played out over countless VCs in this audience that might be better served than me to advise. But I would say, I think that you're seeing the stack vendors who have really acquired some baseline capability. And you think about Gartner talking about a $17 billion analytic market. If we look at the wave of analytics 2.0 with the data visualization vendors and the analytic data stores leading the way, the stack vendors were wholly incapable of innovating. They ultimately acquired assets in that space. And I think that's kind of the playbook that I see going forward. I don't think they can innovate. A short commercial on the data science space. In the last 5 years, we've ranked as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It's been us, SAS, and IBM. And Oracle, Azure, SAP has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 5 years and haven't been able to crack that. So I think that data science has significant IP and it's a tough space to crack.
Right. I think we're way over our time, and I really appreciate the audience patience on that one. So thank you again for your time, and we are here to take more questions.
Thank you, Peter and Upal.